Equity in the outdoors entails many things, including access to equipment, access to a vehicle or public transportation, and access to knowledge. We also have to think about the constraints of time and money and all the different ways that it can be really difficult to take that time to get out and experience something as wonderful as fly fishing and being in the river. Today on the podcast, we're talking to Austin Campbell. He's a fly fishing guide in the Denver area, and his focus is on making fly fishing more equitable and getting more underrepresented folks in the outdoors. Austin is really such a wealth of knowledge, and he shares it with all of us so that maybe you can get out there and start fishing.
Or they'll have a shift from going to like, oh, I want to catch all the fish. I want to catch all the fish in this river right now, to then being like, okay, it's actually more of just the whole experience, just being out here and being able to disconnect and just relax and, focus on something completely different.
Welcome to 2 Degrees Out West, a podcast where we talk about all of the amazing things of the Western United States and the different ways that we can come up with amazing climate solutions to make sure that we have a beautiful and thriving West for all. I'm your host, Jessie Janessi, the multimedia storyteller here at Western Resource Advocates, and let's get started talking to Austin. Austin Campbell is a Denver-based fly fishing guide that works with Trouts Fly Fishing and runs the nonprofit Community Fly Fishing to introduce inner-city kids and underserved Denver residents to the joys of fishing and the serenity of the outdoors. Yeah, I'm so psyched to have you here. I know almost nothing about fishing. I think I've gone fishing like 4 times in my life. So I'm stoked about it. And I live in Northern Nevada, and it's a big deal out here. Like, people love it.
Oh yeah, no, you guys have some great spots to fish out there, and oh my gosh, there's the lake out there. I cannot even remember what it's called, but it's like on like half of it's like a Native American reservation, and then the other half is kind of open for everybody else. But I've seen some huge fish just being pulled out of that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's Pyramid Lake.
Pyramid Lake. Oh my god, can't even remember that. But
yeah, and they have the Lahontan cutthroat trout, which is apparently like super special.
Oh yeah, apparently huge. I've never gone out there yet and fished, but I know a few people that have gone out there and just enjoyed it so much, and said it was just an amazing experience, and it's just the craziest thing that you can pretty much do in terms of lake fishing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. You should come out sometime. My friend was just there last weekend fishing, and it was like basically like a religious experience to him because the lake is like a religious site for the tribe out here, and he's not indigenous, but he just like, feels the essence. So when he went out there to fish for the first time, he like brought an offering and like, like really set his intention for it and had like a really incredible spiritual experience fishing. So yeah. Okay, let me get started just by asking you how you got into fishing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've been fishing since I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. So back in the day, my parents, they would always bring us up to this farm in Atchison, Kansas. And so the farm is basically a black farming town, which is amazing. They've got some really kind of rich history there. And all my dad's side and kind of family is up in that area. And so we would go down to, oh my gosh, we get on to different ponds on the farm. They would take us to the Missouri River, kind of anywhere. There's just fish anywhere in Kansas. But they would take us out there. We would just we do more conventional stuff. So, we were using worms and liver and like guts and stuff like that to catch catfish. But, it's a really good time. And I think that's what really kind of got me into just the world of like the outdoors and just, taking that time and, spending time outside with your family, fishing on the farm. So, transitioned out to Denver, still wanted to be out in the outdoors as a kid. So, my parents, we were fortunate enough to be able to hire a fly fishing guide for a trip that we did and went up and just enjoyed it so much. And, it's a completely different game. And so I just, told myself, hey, I'm going to get into this however I can. So that's kind of when the addiction hit me and I was stuck and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like really enjoying this. Now I got to do it every single weekend. So
what's the name of the town?
For sure. It's Atchison, Kansas. So they're on the outskirts of it. So yeah, my great grandfather, he used to work for just different kind of like white landowners back in the day, and he was clearing their property and such, and then was able just to buy a bunch of different land for our family. And so, we kind of split it out between, they had 10 brothers and sisters. So it's split it out between everybody. And
wow.
Everybody was kind of working on the property and living out there. So it's fun to go back and visit for sure. It's almost kind of like going back in time a little bit. But I love it. I love just being in the outdoors out there.
That is so cool. I love that story.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want that. I want to make a farm for my family and pass it down. That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? That is so cool. It is so cool.
Yeah, so sweet. Look at how it impacted your life. That's really beautiful.
For sure. That's definitely just the foundation for everything. My parents were always like, oh, like we don't watch TV or, like we never really played video games and stuff like that. So my brother and I were just like outside either riding bikes, or just, I don't even know, just doing random stuff outside as a little kid, which was just so fun. And then, going up to the farm and having that experience. But, like the one thing that I was really appreciative is just having that ability to just, kind of disconnect and just go and do something completely different in nature. And I know not everybody can like kind of have that same ability. So my biggest thing is just trying to get more people in the outdoors however I can.
Yeah, I really want to get into that, but first I just want some foundations about fly fishing. I've seen people do it, like it happens around here in the Truckee River and on the lakes and stuff, but I don't fully get what the difference is between regular fishing or whatever and fly fishing. So, can you just explain it a little bit?
No, absolutely. So with kind of more conventional fishing, I would say it's more just the experience is a lot different. So, it's more you're kind of sitting there and you cast out, you're using live bait and you're basically waiting for the fish to kind of come to you and eat. With fly fishing, it's a little bit more involved. So it's more kind of like a hunting game is how I kind of envision it, especially when I'm on the river. I'm always kind of moving, flipping over rocks, looking for different bugs, reading the water just in terms of how quick the current is going in a specific area. And okay, well, there's a little pool over here. Well, I know a trout's going to be sitting kind of right in that mid current, being able to eat. So it's just more of a hunting game, and it's kind of more involved too. And then also just the gear that you're using. I mean, with conventional fishing rod, I guess they're not as big as a fly rod. Fly rods can go from 9 feet to 10 feet. And some even bigger than that. But really, what you're trying to do is just replicate the natural state of bugs or fish with streamers and such to get that trout or whatever species you're going for to eat. So yeah, it's really an interesting game. It's really methodical, which I also enjoy. You're always just switching up in terms of depth and presentation, and just kind of figuring out what the fish are doing that day. So it's a fun game. I love it. I love it for sure.
And you're in the water, right? That's part of the deal.
You are in the water, which is so nice. I think that's like a really fun thing for me. When I was a kid on the farm in Atchison, I was telling you about, we used to like walk up these little creeks and we would try to find crawfish and then we would put them in this bucket, bring them home. We'd have like a crawfish boil. Gosh, that sounds so country now thinking about it. But it's kind of that same experience with fly fishing, just being able to walk in the stream, kind of flip over rocks, and really just kind of see and figure out where those fish are. So it's just a completely different game for sure, but it's a lot more involved, I would say.
Yeah, and then the flies themselves, right? I have a friend who he paints and makes flies, and it's
Oh,
like a
nice.
whole thing
Yeah.
that I'm also like, what's up with that? Like, how?
Oh, yeah.
So you're trying to make these like colorful bug things and then put them out there, and then the fish try to get it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's literally it. And when I'm tying flies and such, I've just got different materials. I've got different feathers and such from birds that I'm using to just tie on these hooks to really imitate the either a nymph form or a dry fly form. We can kind of get into that later, but just replicating exactly what those bugs are doing and how big they are, color and like the shape and how they move under the water is really what you're doing when you're tying those flies. And I tie a lot of flies too, but when I get in my season, since I'm taking people out all the time, sometimes I don't have like enough time to tie enough flies for folks to kind of lose and stuff like that. And so I try to buy them in store, just at like a local fly shop and stuff too. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful kind of sport to be in. And there's so many just different caveats of the sport too, with painting, like you were saying, or tying flies, or even just fishing.
Yeah, that's cool. There's like art to it, and then also like a kind of like a mental game to it, and you're also like in it. Yeah, I get why everybody likes it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like there's so many different kind of paths that you can go into it. I've even got friends that they don't like, this is actually crazy. They don't like fishing, but they like tying flies. And I'm like, okay, like so tie all the flies you want and please send them to me so I can use them. But there's so many different ways you can take it.
So when you do your fly fishing guide, and then do you guys actually catch fish and bring it back and then also cook it and like process it?
So when I'm guiding, I typically don't do that. There's different rules and such that you do have on like different streams. And my biggest thing too is, I also want people just to have the ability to catch that same fish that I did, and I want that fish to grow And especially when I'm fishing the same water kind of over and over with different clients and such, I'll start noticing like, okay, well, I know that there's this one fish that has this kind of weird feature on the side of the fish, and I know exactly where it's going to be sitting. And it's funny just to come back and kind of catch that fish with your different clients and such. So, but yeah, I think and another thing you can do too, and I also will keep some fish if I'm going, out on a camping trip and stuff like that. There's a place that my wife and I try to go up to, and it's like 13 miles way up on this Jeep trail, and there's a bunch of different brook trout up there, and so they're pretty small. Some get a little bit bigger. Some of those I'll try to catch and just keep them. And I think there's only limits and stuff that you can have, like only 2 fish that you can keep. And but we'll keep some of those that are just more kind of higher up in the mountains that not a lot of people are going to. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just kind of throwing them back, and people look at me like I'm crazy when I'm throwing fish back sometimes too. But I want everybody to kind of have that same experience with that fish too.
Yeah. And I get like also you need them to complete the life cycle. You can't overfish them, right? Like that would be terrible.
Exactly.
But with the fly fishing, is there a hook or is the fly has a hook on it, right? So it's a
Yeah.
so when you like hook the fish, you can unhook them and it doesn't mess them up.
So kind of with that, so on those flies, like gosh, I try to use barbless flies, so there's no barb that's going into the hook since I'm gonna be releasing the fish anyways. Obviously, people will be like, oh, your catch count, can be not as high because the fish are gonna get off the hook and such without having that barb on there. But yeah, I try to go barbless with kind of most of my flies that I'm tying. Where if I buy flies and they've got barbs, I try to pinch them down for the most part. And in doing that, it just kind of it helps the fish too, so there's not kind of like cuts or anything like that in their mouth.
Out here on Pyramid Lake, a lot of my friends fish, and then there's also an indigenous fishing guide. She's really rad, and I've been like wanting to do that with her.
Mhm.
I don't want to hurt anything. Even though I'm a meat eater, like I can't handle hurting things myself. So that's the thing that's been like really making me not do it, because I'm just like, oh, the poor fish babies.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I mean, like just over the years with fishing and with just fish itself and like how they've evolved, like some fish actually don't have feeling in their mouth, which is interesting. So like especially when you're not using like a barbless hook, that you can just slide that fly right out of the fish's mouth, and so they're okay. But another kind of weird thing too is like when you do hook into a fish, you're technically drowning it
Oh,
when you do hook it in its mouth. Yeah, so it's like depleting all of its air. It's so interesting. But my thing too, and especially with just climate change and stuff and how hot the rivers are, I try to like have my clients not fight the fish for too long, especially if it's a hot day in the middle of July. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure this fish kind of swims away, or the client's going to be looking at me like I'm crazy, like I just killed this thing. But yeah, it's kind of kind of like a balance with.
yeah. Yeah. I guess it's just like getting cut. It's not that terrible.
Yeah, it's not that terrible. I guess it's not that terrible. But yeah, I guess you just try to do as much as you can just to preserve the fish, just so it can be there and just kind of continue the life cycle, like you were saying earlier. So just anything I can do, like even just not even like, oh my gosh, on the river sometimes I'll see people like they'll have dry hands or they'll have gloves on and they'll just grab a fish, and there's like a coating that's like a sunscreen that's on the fish. And so when you do that, you kind of like leave some, if you're using gloves, like you can leave like an imprint with like a glove and stuff on the side of that. And it's not like equitable or like kind of healthy for the fish and stuff. So I just try to do as much as I can just to make sure that there's always going to just be fish for us to catch.
So when you're catching the fish, you should always make sure your hands are wet first.
Wet your hands. Yeah.
Okay.
Wet your hands. Yeah. And then you're good. And, and it gets tough. People are like, oh my gosh, well, it's like 12 degrees out and I'm fishing right now. It's like, all right, well, still wet your hands.
Yeah. If you want to be out here fishing, that's
Yeah,
part of it. Sorry.
that's what you got to do. That's
Yeah.
what you got to do.
Well, I'm all about how beautiful it is out there and the idea of like this quiet time where you're like in the flow, but like in the flow of the universe and in the flow of the water, like that sounds amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I totally get the meditation of it and like why it's amazing.
Mhm.
And then you're also like, yeah, you're connected to this ecosystem and that's incredible. So yeah, the fishing thing sounds really cool to me. I'm just also like, oh gosh, I don't want to hurt anything.
Yeah.
but but I think it's like incredibly valuable and a really cool sport. So I guess let's get into how you decided to dedicate your life to fishing, how and why. And then what, and I'm sure this is going to tie into each other, but like what do you think people can gain from being outdoors fishing all the time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see, kind of dedicating my life to the sport. Gosh, yeah, and those questions do definitely run. I think like the biggest thing for me, is, I really enjoyed the conventional game of fishing, and I still do it sometimes too. But I think for fly fishing, it's just a little bit more interactive, like we were talking about, and there's just different things that you have to do to make sure you're going to catch fish. And so I think that's always it's always fun. There's like always a give and take, and I would be lying to you if I tell you that, I catch fish every single time I go out. I think it's good to get skunked because it keeps the humility there. But I think just the experience of being in nature, just the ability to kind of relax and get away from just the everyday kind of hustle and bustle, being on your phone, the next email that's coming through, it allows you to be present in the moment, which I think is super important kind of with everything you do, and just the mental aspects on it. Oh my gosh, like it just feels so good to just kind of get away from society and just go do something completely different, and have what you're doing, it just matters so much that your phone is just left for the whole day, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been out here for 8 hours, it feels like I've been out here for an hour. So I think all that has really kind of made me dedicate my life to fishing and just trying to get other folks in the outdoors. But the biggest thing is just the mental aspects that it just plays on everyone, just having that time of just kind of disconnecting. And I also read a fact that looking at water is good for your brain, which is kind of interesting. I don't know what like it does or anything like that, but I hope my brain's okay from staring at it all the time.
But I believe that. I mean, yeah, this goes into a whole philosophical thing, but just like, yeah, that we're so much of us is water, right? Water is like so central to our being. I feel like we as humanity are chronically dehydrated. And yeah, and being in water, oh my God, it's like the most soothing thing. Even just hearing it is the best.
Oh my god, yeah, for sure. Hearing it, yeah, and which is so nice. I see some people like they'll fish with headphones on. I'm like, man, like you're missing so much, like right now. And most of it's just like white noise, pretty much, just in the background. But it's just there's something about it that's just,
Absolutely.
it's just amazing. It's just beautiful at the end of the day.
Have you seen that a lot as a fly fishing guide? Like,
Oh yeah, no, I said that happens a bunch too, and especially like people coming in from different states and stuff. Like they don't know what to expect. Once they get out there, they're like, okay, this is really nice. Like, or they'll have a shift from going to like, oh, I want to catch all the fish. I want to catch all the fish in this river right now, to then being like, okay, it's actually more of just the whole experience, just being out here and being able to disconnect and just relax and focus on something completely different, which is good. So yeah, just a bunch of different like mental aspects with it. I think it's good. It's good to just get out of your house. It's just good to get away and do something different. But that comes with access, and not everybody has equal access. So just trying to figure out how we can kind of navigate that as well.
yeah, let's talk about outdoor equity. It's a huge thing.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely big, especially in the fly fishing game. Like things are expensive. It's expensive to get a fly rod, expensive to get waders. Like when I started, God, years ago, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to YouTube to try to figure everything out. I went to Walmart, bought a fishing rod, and I just kept it super basic on just like a basic level. I didn't know about all the places in the mountains to go fishing. And so I would just go to like my neighborhood pond, or, I would go fish like the Denver South Platte, just like right downtown. But, for folks, it's, my biggest thing has just been like, how can I get folks from my community to get into the outdoors and to get into the mountains to really get that full experience? Because it's a completely different experience going and fishing the Denver South Platte or in your neighborhood pond than to really driving like an hour away, really being submersed in nature and kind of by yourself. But like I said, it does come with cost. And the biggest thing was just creating a platform to get folks into the outdoors. And so me and like a few other folks in Denver, we created Community Fly Fishing, which is basically it's a platform to get folks from underrepresented communities into the outdoors. We really work with everybody, so it can be kids kind of up through, gosh, however old you are. But really, our prime target for folks is people that are 18 plus. Since you do have to have a car, you've got to have a car to get far away to get into the outdoors. And so with that, I've just been trying to figure out how can I make it more equitable for people. And so I was able to work with Patagonia and Fish Pond and Umpqua, and they were able to basically put together an opportunity for me to give to other folks. So that's the biggest thing, is just offering, 101 sessions on just how to fly fish and just the basics of it and what you need. And then also just offering like on water instructional trips and we partner with different fly shops in Colorado to get folks out to have them experience that. So I think it's just been amazing, and it's been great. And I hope that those individuals that are older in their family can then pass that along down to younger folks as well. So yeah, a lot of things in equity though that need to change, and it's hard to make a change too. I try to do what I can with what I have, just try to give to others.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
That's all you can do, right? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, even just like you existing, right? Like you as a fly fishing guy that's like dedicated, that has this like diverse background, that is like representing is huge. Like just being a person that other people can see, right? Is like that's so powerful. Yeah, and then there's all the economic factors, right? Like if you don't have a car, if you can't afford a car, like you then and if you can't afford to take the time off work to go up there, or if you're you only have one day off of work a week or something, like, and you're like, oh, I can't spend 2 hours fishing or whatever, or 4 hours. It's so hard. And then those things, those like extra things or whatever, are things that we really need and that we all deserve to be able to be in the outdoors and like find solace and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's exactly it.
You want to tell me a little bit more about making your community fly fishing nonprofit and how you came about doing that? I mean, obviously, the equity piece is really important and you just want to get more folks out there fishing. But like, how did you? Because I know you were running like clinics before, and now you've like taken this bigger step to do this big nonprofit, which is so cool. So, yeah.
So yeah, I guess in 2020, there was like a group of us that were like all folks of color just in Denver that fly fish, and we happen to be folks of color. It's just our people that we know and kind of hang out with. And we were talking, we're like, okay, like how do we get more people into this? And so we started just going to different parks. So we would go to City Park in Denver, and then we would go to like Montbello. They had some parks over there, and then we would also go to Green Valley Ranch. So more folks of color and stuff live. And so yeah, we would just kind of do little clinics, casting clinics, and we would talk about the aquatic biology of fly fishing. We'd go over different knots and things like that. Which was a lot of fun. And we did that for like 2 years. And back in October last year, I was chatting with Patagonia, and I was just kind of telling them what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And they, just really, really loved it and really just kind of appreciated the community aspect of it. They were able to help us get some funding and such. And so with that, now we were able to get even further away. So now it's like going from these parks and such in the Denver area, but now we're able to take folks up to the mountains, just almost like literally anywhere that we can go, and like any place that is willing to have community fly fishing, we're able to go there and provide transportation, and everything is taken care of, so it's a great experience for folks. So
Heck yeah.
So right now we are we've applied for like the nonprofit status, going through all that, which is super fun. It's been amazing just watching this grow too. And next week we've got an event that we're having. It's a 3-day event, and Vail Valley Anglers was able to donate some time on the water for us. And so we're doing like a kind of mini instructional guide day for people that are interested in instructing with community fly fishing for the rest of the summer. And so we're going to have that on the 14th. And then on the 15th, we're basically having like 10 different folks from the Denver area come up. Same thing on the 16th, have another group of 10 folks come up and teach them how to fish. So it's a nice kind of kickoff to the season of it for sure. So it's been fun. It's been fun watching it grow.
I love that. Can you send me some photos?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We got a bunch.
I don't know what the population is like in Denver, but I always see a lot of immigrant folks fishing. It seems like that's like, I'm a second generation American, so like I don't know. I just feel I'm like always like watching, I'm always like, oh, the immigrants. And I feel like, yeah, I see like hella people in downtown Reno and Sparks like fishing at the little ponds or the stream, and I feel like that's just like a lot of those people bring that knowledge with them, and then like just apply it here. And it seems like that's like a major part of their diet and stuff, which is really interesting.
Oh yeah, that's super interesting. I remember like going to reservoirs when I was a kid, and like we would see like there'd be like a heavy Asian population that would be like fishing and such out there, and man, just killing it though. Like, oh my gosh, catching all the fish, and we're sitting there catching nothing. But yeah, and then they're taking it home, cooking it up, and it's amazing though. But man, I would love the opportunity. My brother actually did this, when he was in college. But he had the opportunity to go to Vietnam and just kind of spend some time over there with that community. And He was just he talked a little bit about some fishing over there and stuff, but just completely different. But, their diet is so big on like fish and kind of what they can kind of find in nature and such. So, yeah, I always think that's so awesome to see those folks out there for sure.
Yeah, it's just cool. You just get to see like different people, yeah, bringing their knowledge and their background to it. It's rad. Okay, so what are some tips you would give to newbie fisher folks? Definitely wet your hands before you touch a fish. Good to know. Thanks for giving me that knowledge.
I would say, yeah, I would say the biggest thing, go to YouTube. Yeah, YouTube will teach you anything, which is so nice. Like YouTube University, I call it. Go learn casting, learn knots, learn about bugs and such. But it can be also overwhelming for folks too. So, I would also say, if you do know other people or if you're on the river and you see other people, most people are pretty friendly. And that's been my kind of experience. And, especially being a person of color on the river, sometimes I'm like, oh, like, how is this person going to react if I ask them questions? After a while, it's just like, you know what, I don't really care how you react, but I'm going to ask you this question, which is kind of nice. So, I always just try to gain knowledge from folks I see in the parking lot. But yeah, definitely go to YouTube, and then also just start small. Like obviously, it's an expensive hobby to get into, and with that, there's different ways you can kind of get around it without paying the big dollars for certain things. So like going to Walmart and stuff like that, and starting there, and then like once you're like, oh my gosh, this is really fun, then you can kind of start increasing your gear and what you're really bringing with. So yeah, that's kind of some good tips. So definitely go to YouTube, teach you everything.
Yeah, YouTube's the best. I love it.
It's the best. Change your life. Imagine like, and it's crazy too. Like thinking when like back in the day when folks like didn't have like YouTube and things like that. Then it's really word of mouth. You gotta really just kind of ask folks that are out there and around you. But I think that's just been a big influence on a lot of folks that are fishing nowadays for sure.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I teach some art classes and pretty much everything I learned from YouTube. And then I'll just be like
Nice.
teaching this group of like 30 people. And I'm like, well, yeah, I Googled it and I, you know,
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Like, oh my gosh, and you're sharing the knowledge, at that
yeah.
point too, which is really good.
Yeah, I love that.
I think like the last thing too, if there is like a local fly shop or something like that, always just tapping in there and just asking different questions, to perfect your game, I think is also just really, really important too. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like people that really love something want to share it because like sharing your love of a thing is like so special. So yeah, and they
Exactly.
just
Yeah, exactly.
you want to nerd out on the thing you like, so please ask me about it. Like let me tell you everything about it.
For sure. Yeah. Let me tell you everything. And then, too, like for me, I'm just like my goal is just to get different folks and just kind of anybody who wants to fish, give an opportunity to try it. So I'm like, like me holding information from you is not going to really kind of help you get in the outdoors and really kind of enjoy it. So I'm an open book. I tell people everything. I'm like, here, go here, try this. This is what should work. And then let me know if it worked.
Are there any people that are like secretive about their fishing spots?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You get that so much. And I get it. I get it. You gotta, if there's some spots that you're like, okay, I can't tell anybody about this place, and I've got those spots too that I don't really tell a lot of people about. But there's so many spots that are just like so known to the public and such, and just so quick and just easy access. Like, for example, like in Denver, you've got Bear Creek and Clear Creek. Those are 20 minutes outside of Denver with no traffic. So, those are just great spots that you can just kind of pull up to and go and fish and just keep trying different things on those rivers. But yeah, there's some other places that I like don't tell people about that are a little bit further away. But yeah, other than that, ask me anything, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's fair. That's like the hot spring culture.
Right.
Every
Yeah.
time whenever I post a photo of a hot spring, it's like 60 people being like, "Where's that at?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No,
Secret.
sorry."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. And it's crazy too, like the amount of people that have moved to Denver. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. There's a lot more people here too. And so it's just more people on the river and such too. It's good to kind of keep some of those spots that you've been going to a secret, and also just spread knowledge as you can though too, and just sharing with folks and telling them where to go as well. Because that's kind of how I started too. Like nobody, like I went on YouTube, figured out where to go, and then I went to like a local fly shop, and they were like, "Hey, like check this out." And so I would go there, and then stuff started working. And I was like, "Okay, I can see how this is kind of working out." But yeah, just share info, as much info as you can.
yeah. What about getting used gear? Like,
Oh,
can you find stuff on Craigslist and Marketplace? That's where I get all my,
yes.
once I'm like, oh, I want to get into a hobby, I just find somebody who's over that hobby
Yeah.
and then I buy all their stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my God. I bought so much stuff on like Facebook Marketplace and like Craigslist and gosh, even from like friends or like some fly shops you can go to like after the season, be like, hey, like, how's your rental gear looking? Like, do you have any rods or anything that I can like buy on a discount or things like that? But yeah, used gear is where it's at. Oh my gosh,
Cool.
for sure.
Look at YouTube, watch YouTube videos, go on Facebook Marketplace, start fishing.
Yep. Start fishing. That's it.
Yes.
That is it. I'm telling you.
What about climate change? I mean, you talked about population growth, which is like, that's huge. I'm seeing that in Reno, and it's like, it's tough because I moved here. So I'm like part of the problem, but also, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
still like, oh man, huge swaths of desert that I used to do archery. I would just go out and do like wild archery or whatever. And now it's like a housing development or condos,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
dang.
Seen that.
And I'm sure Denver is the same. So,
Oh yeah.
but then other things about climate, like you guys have been in a drought for a while. Finally, you have good snowpack. Same, also same. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. The first thing I wanted to just address, yeah, there's so many spots that I've gone to, especially up in like kind of like Frisco, Silverthorne kind of area. As a kid, there was like nothing out there, and then you come back like a year later and you start seeing things go up. You're like, oh my god, like they're taking over, this little area of water, or like kind of right next to the street. It's always sad too, but I get it, more people moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in terms of climate change, there's been a lot that we've been dealing with over the past few years, especially in Colorado, and also in Pennsylvania too. I saw a bunch of that while fishing out east. But water temperature has been huge with it being hotter and such in the summertime. Water temperature has been just so crazy, and so it's been warm, and some fish really don't, trout specifically, like don't do well when that water is getting, like 60 plus. I would even say it's just, it gets too hot for them. And so, I try to just do as much as I can. With tippet size, I'll be like, okay, well, it's going to be hot today. So I don't want to fight the fish for too long. And so I'll increase my tippet. So typically for tippet, you're using 5X, 4X. But, sometimes if it's super hot, I'll go to 3X. And what that means, it's basically just stronger. And so it's easier to just kind of pull the fish in and then just release them after that. And with that too, when it's super hot, I try to not have my clients like hold the fish too. Like I'll kind of hold the net up and they can take a picture of it and such too. But it's been really interesting, and with that can also bring some reduced flows on some headwaters and such too. Seeing so like there's a lot of different factors right now, and God, the Colorado rivers. Hopefully, it should be good this year with just the amount of snowpack that we got. But in the years past, it's been like super low, and we've been hit with hoot owl to where we, have to be off the water at a specific time and such too, which is great to really just kind of preserve the fishing.
Ooh, what does that mean? So it's like a curfew?
Yeah, it's a curfew pretty much. So like some days will be like, okay, like you got to be off the water by like, I don't know, like 12 o'clock or something like that. To when they know it's like, okay, it's gonna get hot this afternoon. The temperature of the water is going to increase too. It's going to be even harsher for the fish, and so we try to get off the water. Gosh, there was like a period like a couple of years ago where like you couldn't even fish like certain rivers and such. They would close, which was really good. So like they would close and force you to go look at different spots, but it was good for the fish and just good for like the habitat to keep it good and kind of, yeah, I guess, yeah, to keep the habitat growing and healthy for future generations. But there's so much water here that you can go down south, or go up to Wyoming or down to New Mexico. There's so many different places to go, when kind of all this is going on in the summer months.
Yeah. You're going to have a good season this year, but it's so tough because you just don't know what the next season will be. So,
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm excited for this season too. Like I know like the reservoirs are looking good. The snowpack is crazy. We've gotten so much snow, which has been so fun. And I do a lot of snowboarding and stuff out here, but that's been super, super helpful. So I'm looking forward to that. I think the one thing that's going to be kind of nuts is definitely going to be runoff this year. So definitely be careful during runoff season and when you're wading and getting in the water. Because those, oh my gosh, those flows on Clear Creek, for example, here, like it'll be, I don't know, maybe like 15 or something like that CFS, and it bumps up to like 800, sometimes to like 1,000 CFS. And so that water is just pushing, and gets higher, banks and stuff, and that water is just flowing down.
Is that cubic feet per second?
Yeah, cubic feet per second. Sorry, I'm just like I was just like kind of spit that out. But yeah, so definitely just being careful during those times. And there, it's actually really sad. Like I would almost say like every year, there's always like an accident or something like that in Clear Creek, which is the place that's like 20 minutes outside of Denver. People just getting into the water when it's going that fast, and they get pulled under and such. And so yeah, which is just so scary. And so,
Be careful. If it looks like it's a raging river, it is. Don't get in.
right, don't get in. You don't need to get in. There's another place that you can go that's probably not raging. So definitely looking at flows and such for the runoff.
Yeah. It's been snowing from October to April. It hasn't snowed this much since the 1950s. So it's crazy. It just snowed
Yeah,
last weekend. Basically every 3 days it snowed.
jeez.
Yeah, it's like an East Coast winter. I'm like, what is happening? But the river is raging and it's going to be super good fishing and hopefully it'll be good. Yeah, good for the fish and it'll be good trout spawning year or whatever and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that'll be it should be good. I'm excited. It was a good winter for sure. It's much needed winter.
So, are there any special moments from your fly fishing career that really stand out to you that you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, gosh, I feel like I've had so many special moments. Honestly, like every single time going out, fishing is special, which is nice. But I would say I've like recently, like within like the past like 4 years, like gotten into more saltwater fishing, which has been a lot of fun. And so going to like Mexico and the Bahamas, just different just spots like Belize and such. But
Wow.
um,
Jealous.
I went down to yeah, it was so fun. Oh my gosh! But I went down to the Bahamas and went to Nassau, which was fun. And we were down there for a conference or something like that. And my brother and I was like always bringing our fishing stuff and we're going places. And I was like, okay, like you don't really hear about fly fishing on Nassau specifically, but more of like the other like islands and such like Abaco. But I was like, okay, like there's definitely got to be some fish here. And so just started doing some research and I found like this one guy who's the like only Bohemian fly fishing guide on the island. So we hit him up and I was like, hey, like my brother and I coming down, like, can you take us fishing? And he was like, yeah, I got you guys. It's crazy. And I didn't tell him that we were like black folks. He was so shocked. It was hilarious when he pulled up. He's like, man, like I've never really fished with like any other like black folks. I'm like, all right, well, here we go. Now we're gonna get these fish. And so we went to like the south side of it was the south side of the island, and there was a bunch of different like flats and such. And God, I just remember walking. Like we walked probably like 4 hours. Like didn't see any fish. We saw some sharks, like saw some stingrays, but like, didn't see any bonefish or anything like that. And yeah, we just kept walking and walking, and we finally like came up to this town. And it typically was like, like usually like the trip's over, but we hadn't caught anything since we hadn't seen any fish or anything. And he's like, hey, like let's just keep going and kind of like fish kind of around this bend to where it was like these people's backyards. They had like different boat launches and such. And I guess you could walk through it. So yeah, we kept walking, get around this corner, and we just see these just pods of bonefish. Like with bonefish, like they school together. So like they're always just kind of together, moving together and such. And we got around there and it was we saw probably like 3 pods of like, it had to have been like 100+ bonefish just kind of sitting there. And I was like, oh my God, like this could be crazy. And so we just started fishing for him and we caught, I don't even know how many fish we caught after that. But it was all within like, like an hour or so of just fishing with this guy that we were able to catch these fish after just like walking for hours. But it was really cool. It was a good experience. And, it was fun too, since, nobody's really going to Nassau to go fly fishing. So it's really fun to meet this guy and just kind of connect with him on just stuff that he deals with too, like as a Bohemian guide and, dealing with people that are coming into vacation and such and kind of getting his experience. But yeah, that's one that'll probably stay with me for a very long time. I really enjoyed that one.
And you're just on the beach, like on the beautiful tropical beach, just fly
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah. We're just like on the flat. So like, and it's so crazy. Some of those flats, like you can walk, gosh, like from like where the beach is, if you walk like a mile all the way out to like, kind of the middle of the ocean, if you will.
Wow.
But it's still only like 3 feet of water, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But when the tide starts kind of increasing, you got to start walking back just so you don't get stuck out there. But that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, kind of just being in that whole just different like scene in nature still. But it was just still so beautiful, just so amazing. So that's one that I'll probably stick with me forever. But yeah, love the saltwater game. It's a lot of fun and definitely trying to go to different spots to do more of it.
And your brother goes with you a lot. It's so cool that you guys share that. That's amazing.
Yeah, my brother and I fish up like pretty much. If I'm not fishing with him, I've only got like a few other people that I try to fish with and stuff, like on my own when I'm fishing. But yeah, I fish with him a bunch, and like out here, we just bought a raft about a year and a half ago, which is so fun. And so we're gonna start doing a lot more like float fishing and stuff like that on the river, just to kind of expand the game. So it's been fun doing it with him, though. It's just something that we've always just connected with, and always just connected being outside since we were kids fishing and such too. So it's fun to do that now as we're older.
Oh man. Now I'm like, I have a little fishing boat that was gifted to me
Nice.
like in 2018, and I've done nothing with it because I know how to do boat stuff when the boat's on the water, but I don't know how to get it to the water,
Yeah,
which is like, I'm sure it's not that hard, but it just intimidates me. But now you're making me think that I should bring my kids out and then they
oh
could
my
like,
god.
maybe they'll love it.
Yeah, it's
I'm like, oh, let me bond my children with fishing. That sounds
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. You're like, here we go. But no, it's so fun though. But and being on the boat is, oh my god, that is such a blast. Like for me, some days I'm like, I don't even need to fish. Like I'll just row all day and like have a blast out there. So there's so many things that I guess like fishing has done for me, and just in general and such, and just different doors that it's been opening in the past few years. So, it's been amazing. It's been a fun journey.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story. I love like what you're doing, and it's just like, it's such a rad
Yeah,
outdoor success story. I love that it's like a whole family event for you guys, and you have this beautiful farm that you go to. Maybe my kids will like also,
yeah,
like with our little ranch and with all the like times I
yeah.
force them to go camping with me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny. Like as a kid, you're like, oh, am I having fun? Like, am I like as a kid when I was fishing, I was having fun, but when I had to like go and work on the farm and stuff, I'm like, this is not fun. Like this is hard. And then you like look back on it, you're like, oh my God, like that was such a blast. And like just the opportunity to like live on a farm or like go to a farm and such is so amazing and such a different perspective that like not everybody gets.
Yeah.
And so there's something about that. There's something about that for sure. So.
Is there any other thing that you want to add before we finish?
Like yeah, as you're getting into the sport, just basically going to parks too. I like briefly mentioned that, but definitely going to parks, and for the casting aspect of it, just like setting up like little targets. Like when we do our community fly fishing things, like we'll typically have like hula hoops that we'll set up, and we'll just put them at like different lengths and such, and we'll just do like different like target practice. Like really helps for you to get on the river and kind of just know exactly what you're doing, or just know kind of how to just get the fly out there. And especially when you're starting, it doesn't have to be perfect, just get it out there as best as you can. So yeah, definitely just go to parks around your house too. And there's so many different places to kind of get started and get into the sport.
Thank you so much, Austin. That was amazing. Now I'm definitely really motivated to get my kiddos out on that fishing boat on Pyramid Lake. That sounds wonderful. And also thanks for all of the amazing stuff that you're doing in Denver to just get people out in the wilderness, in our rivers, and connecting with nature. It's beautiful. If you want to learn more about Austin's nonprofit community fly fishing, or maybe hire him for a private lesson or as a guide, I will put all of those links in the show notes so you could find out more and get connected. Maybe you're going to Denver for a conference soon, like I am, and you're like, it's a great time to fly fish. Really quickly, I just want to thank our amazing sponsors who help make this possible. And as I've been saying for a few episodes now, it is sponsorship season. So if you've been thinking about sponsoring something cool, our nonprofit could definitely use your support. And then you're also contributing to this podcast and making sure I can still make this content. So yeah, think about it, check it out in the show notes and learn about it. We'd like to take a second to thank our premier sponsor, Vision Ridge Partners, our signature sponsor, Scarpa, and our supporting sponsors, Jones & Company and Javelina. Thanks so much, guys. We appreciate your support. Okay, don't turn it off yet. It's time for my favorite part, what I like about the West, where we just ask you what you like about the West. You send in your little soundbite, and then we play it here. This episode, we have my coworker, Crystal Parrish. She's the Senior Foundation Relations Officer here at WRA, and she told me what she likes about the West, so let's listen.
Hi, I'm Crystal Parrish. What do I love about the West? Where to begin? I love the landscapes. I love the big blue skies. I love the freedom that I get when what I feel when I'm out in nature, how it helps me decompress from the stresses of urban life or even suburban life. I love the lakes that I visit and hike around. I love that I can take my animals, my dogs out on a trail, and we can spend a whole beautiful afternoon just enjoying nature and running about and being free.
Thanks, Crystal. I like all those things about the West too. And don't forget, you can always contribute to this little segment by emailing me your recording right to my inbox. And I'm not going to even spell out my email here because it's a little tricky, but look in the show notes and there's always information about how to submit your stuff. Okay, time to wrap it up. 2 Degrees Out West is a production from Western Resource Advocates. We advocate for the West. That means we help to put laws in place that protect the West, advance clean technology, keep our air clean, keep our waters healthy, and all that great stuff. If you'd like to learn more about us, maybe even sign up for our email alerts, go to our website, westernresourceadvocates.org, where you can find out a whole bunch of information and also become a donor. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you are inspired to go fishing